If you were to make your own comic, what kind of genre or theme would you focus on?
Okay, I'm just going to share something very personal. So I actually want to work on a graphic novel. And I've been thinking about this for a very long time. I wanted to make a graphic novel about my mom's life. So my mom is Lim Lee Kok. She's the founder of Asia Pac Books. She is someone who has worked with comic artists for her entire career. And worked with so many comic artists also, like from Taiwan, Malaysia, China, Singapore. And then I always think like her life is very interesting. A lot of people don't know that much about her life, but I feel it would be very nice, and it would be very nice if it's drawn by the artists that she's worked with, because I think in a way she's given so much of her life and her career to comic artists. It would be nice to actually be able to tell her life story in an illustrated format.
For me, what would I want to do? Okay, I have no plans at the moment, like not like Lingying where I'm like, okay, I think I want to do this and I probably might do it, but in my ideal world, if I ever did something, it'll be probably East Asian fantasy, definitely Chinese, period Chinese. Like, I always have like story ideas just bouncing around, like, oh, wow, it'd be nice to write something like that. But then it never really happens. I had like one comic idea before. Should I even be reviewing it here? Okay.
Yeah, I see already. So
the comic idea was actually that it was kind of like a Hua Mulan take. The protagonist does not know that this general that everybody loves is actually someone who is like cross-dressing, and then from there, people are so in love with her. The main female character also falls in love with the general as well, and then somewhere along the way they find out, and then there's a lot of drama. I feel like that's the kind of thing that I love to read. Like nowadays, I've had a hard time reading recently, so whenever it seems like these are the books that I'm picking up naturally, and then I gravitate towards.
What kind of comics do you think are currently lacking that you would love to see more from the local comic scene?
Okay, so for me, I personally, I guess somewhat related to my previous answer, is that I would love to see more whimsical art, more fantasy, more self-indulgent things, very magical and very hard magic, something like that would be very hard fantasy, would be very, very nice to see.
For me, the thing that I want to see more of, actually I don't really care about the genre. I just want to see more long form stories. Because I find that we have a lot of short form things. So for example, like Instagram comics are a big thing, 4 panels. And also a lot of our comic artists release graphic novels that are like 100 pages or so. For me, I know it's very difficult to make a long book, but I just really, really like reading more long form stories with like very like rich whole kind of storylines. So I love to see more of that.
Yeah. So see, she's on the lookout for that. So if any of you guys are drawing long form comics, look for her.
Actually, not that I want to publish it, but I just want to read.
What trends in Singaporean comics do you guys predict will happen in the near future? So Lingying, what do you think?
I think it's a bit hard for us to weigh in on trends because we're seeing, from our perspective, we see a very small slice of the comic scene, which is the comic book scene, which is very small. But I think largely the trend for me, I notice is that a lot of comics are online. I don't know if that's a trend or not, but Instagram comics, webtoons, these are huge and getting bigger every day in Singapore.
I feel like also because Singapore itself is really, really small, so I think most people wouldn't expect all your audience to be from Singapore, and it's hard to keep things afloat just based off that. So a lot of people will be like, okay, we're gonna put our stuff online, and then of course then it brings in the international audience, and there's a huge following. I mean, like Bobble Jot is so well loved and international, partially also because they're online. So I think a lot of local creators, there is this tendency now, I think, like more people are considering publishing online as opposed to like traditional print publishing.
Yeah, and in fact, I would say like, as if you're a comic artist in this day and age, just go online straight away. Don't think about print until much further down the line, because like saving all that energy to do one print book when you can start building your reach and your audience and your fan base online, it makes so much more sense to start online. Doing a book is not that important. I really think for comics have historically been media for the masses. So if you are creating a story that's meant to be accessible and read widely, doing it through a print book and printing 500 copies is not really where you need to be. I think where you need to be is online. Yeah. Can self-published comics be bigger than published comics?
Honestly, yeah. Definitely. Because I mean, we were just talking about online comics, and then people who do that, they are basically self-publishers, aren't they? So, published comics also, like, just because you have a print book doesn't mean you will automatically sell like 10,000 copies, right?
Don't feel intimidated by the idea of like self-publishing versus traditional publishing. There's actually not much difference. There are a lot of tools for self-publishers these days. You can have products that are as good as traditional published books. You can also build up a business starting by being a self-publisher and then becoming more like a traditional publishing house. So, there shouldn't be this discrimination today.
Definitely. Are our comics too localized for the international audience to relate to the story that we tell?
Don't be afraid to go local. I think people sometimes they feel like, oh, I need to appeal to this person or that person. No need to think about where they are or what country they're from or whether they're like in Singapore or outside Singapore. You have to think about yourself and what story you can tell best.
Exactly. Honestly, I think as long as you put out the work that you love and put in a lot of effort to, people will come and there will be people who are interested. And don't water down your stuff just because you feel like, oh, this will appeal to the Western audience. No. Also, realistically, they are, how they are more likely to be like, I'm gonna watch Marvel or something. So don't cater to them. Just think about the kind of thing that you want to do. And there will always be some niche audience that will be like, yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And then, they'll follow you, they'll find you. So how did COMIX.SG came to be? Come to be. Okay. Oh, it come to be. Yeah, sorry, misread that.
Okay, COMIX.SG is something that me and Clement, my colleague from Asia Pac, we started thinking about one day because we felt that there needs to be this online database. And shout out to Poetry.SG, Prose.SG, because these online databases came about first. And then we were like, comics also need one. So we did a COMIX.SG. So it's just an online database. But later on we felt like, oh, there's potential to do other things as well. So since then, this podcast, our anthology, our mentorship program, that was what we did last year.
NEC were they very kindly supported us for those projects.
We started just before the pandemic and we're only in the third year, so there will be more to come now.
So will COMIX.SG grow to be a bigger publisher?
Actually, COMIX.SG, we have no ambition to be a publisher because Asia Pac Books is a publishing house. I'm already a book publisher most of the time. But COMIX.SG, we very specifically want to connect people and build an online community. So in terms of providing that space, that's our priority. Publishing and all the things, there are other publishers out there that publish local comics. So we're not trying to do that. Want to be very clear.
Okay, so any plans to market future publishing to other regions?
Yeah, I think COMIX.SG, our 5-year plan will also include marketing Singaporean comic books overseas as well. So say like regional or like international comic cons like San Diego and all that. That'll be the dream lah. Maybe in a few years' time, that'll be something that we want to do.
And any plans for future projects and or interviews? This one is quite interesting.
Yeah, so this one you guys have to stay tuned to the end of the year because we're working together with Singapore Comic Con and this will be quite a big thing in our season 2. So season 2 is going to start rolling out around December this year, so you guys can check it out then. Let us know what interviews you want to see actually because we haven't started shooting yet, but we want to hear from you guys what you guys want to watch. Yeah.
Are there any plans for physical events for COMIX.SG, for example, workshops, casual gatherings, etc.?
We will be at Comic Con this year, so that's in December 10 to 11. So that's the best place to meet us there. I would love to do more social kind of events. So what we're doing is we're going to be bringing artists to the booth. They're going to do meet and greet. So I think that'll be the best time for people to come down, meet the artists who worked on the COMIX.SG Anthology, including Nadra. And of course, Viency and I will be hanging around. So
can't miss the Comic Con now that it's finally back.
Yeah, so it's a big thing for us. So every year, if you guys want to hang out with us, come to Comic Con. And other events, I think you can join our Discord. There's quite a good, vibrant mix of artists down there. If you guys want to initiate physical events, you're very welcome to. I was talking to someone last week about maybe going to watch movies together. Like Akira is showing at the projector soon. Then I was like, maybe we should organize like a COMIX.SG movie club.
That'd be kind of cool actually.
Yeah, like a movie club, then we can go watch all these like films when they come out. So let us know in the comments like if you have ideas.
So the next question will be, will there be another edition of the COMIX.SG Anthology?
I hope there will be another edition of the COMIX.SG Anthology. We plan to do it every 2 years actually. And we are open to other publishers publishing it as well. So we will be planning it for next year lah. And the good thing about this also is that we know it takes time for artists to collect their ideas and work on things. So this is us giving you very long advance notice. If you guys want to contribute to the anthology, we're going to be doing one next year. Yeah.
Ooh, great news.
Are there any taboo things that new comic artists should avoid doing?
Okay, so here's the thing. I think both of us actually agree on this, is that it's very difficult to say that something is taboo, because what can be considered taboo for someone could be turn it into something innovative and almost something that is uniquely identified to yourself. So honestly, taboos, not that much. But there are certain, I feel, like comic making advice, like things related to like lettering or like how you should draw panels. All these things, they're not taboos. It's advice that, like there are certain standards. You could maybe, for example, follow these advice. But even then, they're not set in stone. So I feel like this is the only thing that I can really say. If you're looking for comic making advice, there's plenty of information online. So I feel like that's where you can start off. There is no hard nose when you're making comics. I think that's really my answer for this question.
What are some good resources related to financial things that comic artists can tap into? For example, rates for covers, inking, coloring.
Okay, that's a really good question actually. And to be honest, I'd say that even as book publishers, our best advice actually is to speak with your fellow artists. So we have we have a whole group of those in our Discord. So actually, if you join, you can talk to all these artists. They work in many different sectors. Some of them are freelancers. So actually, hearing directly from people who are in the industry is actually the best way to learn. Because when we are looking for online financial resources, they may not directly apply to Singapore, for example. So the best way is to check in with your local artists and figure out what they are charging.
What is good or bad etiquette when hiring an independent artist?
Okay. I actually had a similar conversation with my friend recently, where he asked me basically what's the worst thing a client or someone, an artist can do to you as an editor? And I was like, ghosting. That's it. Because everything, as long as you communicate, we can figure it out together. But if you just disappear off the face of the earth, what happens? Nothing. You don't get paid, the project doesn't get done, and then what? The timeline drags on forever, and that's where we have no idea what to do. So as long as you don't ghost, you are fine. Everything else, if you really cannot make your deadline, just explain. Because at the most, you have to figure out, because if they want that project done, we will figure it out together.
Definitely, if you're a client hiring an artist, similarly if you're an artist working with a client, just keep the communication open. This also applies to relationships. If you have a problem, communicate about it.
Yeah, don't hide in your heart, and then after that, explodes out, and then everybody is unhappy.
Yeah. So
keep everything above board, y'all talk about it, and you'll be unhappy for a while, but at least y'all talked about it, right? So it's better than you hide here.
What are we giving advice about now?
Okay, anyway, emotional advice for your relationships and whatnot. Talk about it.
Love episode.
Yeah.
Love episode part 2.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just like to talk about things that are not comics also, I feel.
Comics is life.
There's a lot of struggle for local artists, especially aspiring comic artists, to get their work out there. Do you have any suggestions for them? Like physical or virtual spaces, events to network or showcase work that's friendly to beginners?
Okay, for this one, I think doing boothing at at events is quite important. Whether you're starting out as an artist or you're someone who's very skillful and very established, there should be an event that you can booth at. And also, when you booth at these events, you can make friends with other artists and then improve your skills and be exposed to what other artists are doing. So it's a very, very good learning opportunity. Even if, let's say, you don't let's say you sell keychains or you sell merch or you sell drawings at these events, maybe you don't make back a lot, but I still think it's very meaningful as a learning opportunity.
Definitely.
In terms of like virtual spaces, again, we keep plugging our Discord, but I really think it's nice to join our Discord server, join some of the conversations that are going on, and just ask your questions out there. Someone will try to help you. I will try to help you. If no one replies to you, I will try to reply you. Yeah, on Nadra lah.
We also have very dedicated mods, just like, they are there, they'll take care of you.
Yeah.
So don't you worry. How do we escape from the shadow of international comic brands?
Yeah, so how do we, I guess, come out of the shadow of like Marvel and DC, right? So earlier there was a question about localization of content. I think this is another thing also. Like, when you tell stories, try to be authentic, show something unique about yourself. Create for the people around you and try to build that hardcore fan base that can support you and your work. I think that's very important also. When you have that, you don't even need to worry what else is out there. Like Marvel, DC, if people like you, they like you. You're obviously not going to be the same as these people, these international comic brands, which are honestly quite sterilized and quite repetitive and maybe to some people very boring. They want to see you, something authentic.
Yes. Yeah. You're not really reaching out to these kind of people. You're reaching out to the people that are not interested in these international brands. And that's your following. How are comics made into a television series on Netflix or other platforms?
Okay, so there are always conversations like this, right? Like artists or writers will come to me and they're like, okay, my goal, my dream is to see my story turned into like a Netflix series. For me, the only answer to this is you need to get an agent. I cannot emphasize this more. Like, if you want to get overseas publication deals, if you want to become a television series in the future, you have to find an agent. Whether that's through your fan base, through word of mouth, or through like cold-calling agents that have this connection to Netflix. That's what you need to do. For those of us in local media, we all know lah, this is a huge challenge. You do need to find an agent, someone who works in the US or UK market.
So our last question for today is, why aren't there more Singaporean comics being sold in popular bookstores? The wording's a bit ambiguous, this one. So
popular or popular?
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons for this. I think, first of all, like Singaporean comics, there's not a lot of titles being published every year. So, let's say if you say, what are the newest titles being published this year? Of course, there'll be more American and Japanese titles in the shelf. But Singaporean titles, like how many comics get published a year? Like 10, 20? That's really not too bad. So in numbers, we're small. And then why aren't there more comics? I think this has to depend on the readers as well. So if you want your bookstore to carry more comics, you go and tell the staff there, be like, how come your comic selection so small? Can you bring in more titles by like XYZ? And then, try to influence that, because bookstores don't care what publishers are trying to sell to them. Bookstores care what readers want to read. So if you feel that there's this need, if you feel like you want to see more comics, just let the bookstore people know. They will cater to you. And we will be very grateful.